open, yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we are live now in your parent group, and we just kind of wait for people to jump on board. How are you doing?
I am doing awesome. Getting ready for our belt testing tonight and tomorrow.
Oh, great. Very cool. So you're synced up with our schedule?
Yes.
Okay. Just let me know if I'm cutting out.
Slightly, but it still looks fine at the moment.
Okay, yeah. The minute I tried to turn on Facebook, the internet started pulling me out. So now I'm not cutting out. Okay, so Denny, thank you very much for having me as a guest in your parent group. This is the very first one of this kind that we're doing where we're not together doing an interview. And if you just joined us, if for some reason we start cutting out, I may have to run across my house and go in the backyard where the internet actually works better. But how's the connection so far, Denny?
So far, it's good, yes.
Okay. So again, thank you very much for having me. And really quickly, I guess since I'm the host of this event, if you don't know who I am, my name is Melody Shuman, and I am the creator of Skillz, which is the program that my boy Denny uses at his school. And we've been friends for, how many years have we been friends?
Again, we talked about it a long time ago. I've known you for about 20 when you first created the Little Ninjas.
Right.
Being in the same discovery group.
That's right. So we've been friends for over 2 decades. And I just really want to do a quick overview so you know who I am. I started martial arts in 1987 in New Orleans when I was 11 years old. And back then, martial arts was what was called the dungeon dojo days, where kids trained side by side with adults. We were given knuckle push-ups on a regular basis. The instructors were able to break boards over our heads, those types of training. And, I didn't last very long in martial arts. By the time I reached my freshman year in high school, I had dropped out of martial arts because it just wasn't cool back then, not like it is now. And I ended up working at Disney for 2.5 years. And during my time at Disney, I learned a lot about entertainment, how to entertain children. And I just so happened to get back into martial arts when I was 19 years old. And my instructor asked me if I wanted to teach a kids class. And I did. And I used some of my entertainment experience that I got from Disney. And I started to edutain the kids in class. And when that happened, my career as a professional children's martial arts instructor just skyrocketed. So I went on to study child development and study the way children learn and grow, not just physically and intellectually, but emotionally and socially. And that's really, in a nutshell, how Skillz was born. It's over 2 decades of research and development into trying to crack the code on how to teach children in a way that helps them become better versions of themselves, that's fun and exciting for them, so that they stick with it long term, so they reap all of the benefits that you get out of martial arts training. So Denny, you and I here today to just kind of hang out and talk with the parents. I know that you said you were going to ask some questions, so I'll let you start with some questions, and we'll take it from there.
Super. Well, I've been busy with it, so I've got about 6 hours worth of questions here. But I realize that you don't have that much time, neither do I with our testing today. So I asked the parents, and they started off with a picky eater. My child hates everything I cook. How can I help get them to eat, not only nutritiously, but whatever it is that I make as a parent?
I love these types of questions because I have a 3-year-old. My son just turned 3 on Saturday, and he is a really picky eater. And make sure I'm not cutting out. He's a really picky eater, and what I have discovered is when I engage him in the process, he is extremely motivated to eat. So what I mean by that is we take him with us to the grocery store, and we get him involved in what we're going to be cooking for dinner. Usually we will pick the protein, but we'll say, what vegetables do you want? So a perfect example is yesterday we made chicken burgers because we're very healthy eaters, and we let him pick the vegetables, but we narrowed it down. Obviously something that complements the chicken burgers with the tzatziki sauce. And his options were green beans, broccoli, peas, or asparagus. And he picked peas. And then what I did is he actually got engaged with the cooking process. So he made the yogurt tzatziki sauce. And what I mean by that is I had the yogurt, and he squeezed the lemons in and then stirred it. He helped me as I was cutting the cucumbers. He was eating the cucumbers, taste testing them. And then as I chopped up the cucumbers, I put them in the yogurt and he stirred it. He pulled the mint off the stems for the recipe. And as I cut them up, he sprinkled them in there and stirred it. He stirred in the white pepper. And then I put the garlic in the garlic chopper. He chopped the garlic. And then I poured it in the bowl and he stirred it. So you should have seen him last night while he's eating. He was doing his little dance because he was engaged in the actual process. So if you do have picky eaters, a lot of the time when they're picky, it's more of a control thing where they want to be in control of who they are, which is not necessarily a bad thing, Denny, right? You want people who are very strong-minded. You don't want a child who just kind of goes with the flow all the time. I mean, you do for convenience, but when you think long-term, who are we raising? You want strong-minded individuals. So the picky eating is more about the control factor. So if you engage them in the process, you're going to get much better results that way. So I recommend you try it. Bring your child to the grocery store, narrow down their options, but give them those options so that they can choose, and then get them involved in the cooking process. I know this is hard to do if you don't have a lot of time, but it's worth it if you can invest the time into helping them engage in the process.
Super. And I think also just the pride of ownership, that helps make the food that you All right. Next one we have is my child moves at sloth speed.
Do you have a specific age for this one?
This one would be 5 or 6.
5 or 6 years old. So if your child is moving at sloth speed at 5 or 6 year olds, that means that in their stage of development emotionally, they're not quite where they need to be. So what you have to do is deploy some really good emotional tactics to help build up their motivation, both intrinsically and both extrinsically. So there's a couple of different tactics that we can deploy here. One of them is a perfect example is healthy competition. This is one of the strategies we use in martial arts, right, Denny? All the time we say, who's faster, boys or girls? Yep. So here's an example. To get my son to brush his teeth on a regular basis is not an easy task to do. And when I try to get him into the bathroom, get him to put the toothpaste on, get him to brush his teeth, he just kind of like prances around and just doesn't really want to do it. More because he's goofy and that's a stage of development, but for a 5 or 6 year old, just means they lack motivation. So having healthy competition, for example, saying, okay, Johnny, you and I are going to brush our teeth. Let's see who could be faster at getting into the bathroom, getting our toothbrush, getting the toothpaste on, and then starting to brush our teeth. So using like healthy competition. Same thing with cleaning their room. If you only have a single child, because that's the mindset I have, because I only have one child, I would do the same thing with cleaning Van's room. I would say, all right, Van, I'm going to clean my room. You're going to clean your room. Let's see who can clean it the fastest. Or let's see who can get ready for school or ready for work. So, when I take my son to school, I go to the gym. So I'll say, okay, when I say go, you're going to get ready for school. I'm going to get ready for the gym. Let's see who can do it faster. So making it a healthy competition really builds that intrinsic motivation. They get really excited about it. Super.
And then also just letting our live viewers know, I have Facebook open. So if you guys have any questions right now, I'll be checking as I go through mine. Tying into the sloth speed, and yes, we use the healthy competition all the time, trying to get kids onto the time schedule regarding homework. We're finding in kindergarten and first grade, kids are already getting about 1 to 2 hours of homework a night, and it just increases as they get higher in grade. So the kids whining and complaining and just not wanting to do the homework, how can you minimize that?
Well, it's a really tricky one because depending on which age it is, there's a different factor. Correct. But I can tell you a universal strategy that a lot of parenting experts deploy is making homework more fun. So my son actually just got his first bit of homework yesterday because he's going to be on holiday next week with Thanksgiving, and I'm so excited. I can't wait to work with him on homework. And my partner's like, yeah, just wait until he's like in the higher grades, and you're going to be like, oh man, we have all this homework. But for me, I'm excited about it right now. if you make the environment very different than normal, that is going to make them a little bit more motivated. So what I mean by that is, for younger kids, you can build a little homework fort where they go in and they get their homework done, right, in their little homework fort. For maybe preteens and teens, it could be putting on some motivational music, lighting a candle, and giving them a special snack or treat that they can have while they're doing their homework, something that's high energy, that gets them excited, having them do their homework outside, depending on the time that you have, even like taking them to the coffee house and saying, let's go run to the coffee house right down the road, and let's see if you can get your homework done in a half hour before martial arts classes. So it's environmentally, if you can change the environment and you can make it a little bit more exciting, that's the way to go. And, I'm okay with utilizing reward systems for children when they get their homework done in a timely fashion without whining or fussing or anything like that. I think that rewards, definitely when it comes to something that even you as a parent are not a fan of, is more beneficial. For something that they have to do, like cleaning their room or eating healthy and stuff like that, rewards aren't always the best thing. But when it comes to homework and how taxing it is, and even parents are like, oh man, this stinks that they have all this homework, then you can deploy the reward system and say, I don't blame you. Homework is very time consuming. You've already been in school all day. So now you're empathizing with them. You say, tell you what, for the next 3 days, if you do your homework on time in a timely fashion, we'll do a family night out and you get to pick where we want to go. Nice. In other words, you're working with them instead of working against them and threatening and punishing. Threatening and punishing was highly effective with me as a child.
Right.
But I tell you what, if my mother gave me something like that, boom, my homework would be done on time all the time. I would have been way more motivated about that.
Absolutely. Yeah, the old school was dad looking over the glasses, didn't have to say a word, and you knew it's time to go. Good. How about, let's see, Andy just asked, your 7-year-old is constantly back-talking, being sassy.
Well, let's talk about this.
Does a back fist still work?
Okay. The reason why, especially at 7 years old, why they are back talking is because this is really where they want to start taking ownership of who they are as a person. So when they're back talking, they're not intentionally trying to disrespect you. They're intentionally trying to figure out who they are and find their own sense of independence. So if you can respond in a manner that's empathetic to understanding that, again, just like being a picky eater, that this is a form of their personality and shows that they are very assertive in their own manners, your approach is going to be a little bit different. But back talking is not a good choice. It's a poor behavior choice because you don't want to back talk authority. You don't want to back talk your parents, and you want to make that clear to your children. So when your children are back talking or they continually do not listen, especially at this age, after you've told them right and wrong, this is where you can hold them accountable. But the first thing is to tell your 7-year-old, listen, Johnny, your choice to back talk me when I give you something to do is not the right choice. What is the right choice? And let Johnny repeat it, because Johnny knows what the right choice is. Johnny's going to say to listen to you, to not back talk, all those things. Then you can say, so the next time you make the wrong choice and back talk to me, this is the consequence that's going to happen. And of course, make that consequence not serious. So you don't want to take away their iPad for a whole week, but maybe they would lose their iPad for the rest of the day. So you say, Johnny, every time you make the wrong choice to back talk me, you will lose your iPad or your iPhone or your video game or whatever is their enjoyment, pleasure time, a hobby. They will lose that for the rest of the day. And this is important because you want to be able to hold them accountable, but you want to separate the behavior from the child. So you don't want to keep telling them, you know what, you're disrespectful. You are a bad kid because you're always talking to me, because they start to wire their brain and believe that that's who they are. So they stay in character in that way. By separating the back talking and saying that it's a choice and letting him know that he has better choices, when he actually does back talk, He's owning it. He's making that choice, but he knows when he makes that choice, this is the consequence that's going to happen. So it puts the responsibility back in his place. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And that's what I think. I talk about it all the time, that number one, the kids would never say or back talk to you or I as their karate instructor. Right. So that's where we know that it's a choice to do that. But exactly. as you just talked about, explain a little bit more about why what we see as negative behaviors are actually good. So being stubborn, being assertive, right, are actually good traits, because all the times parents say they want to get rid of that behavior, but I don't agree. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Exactly. And that's why I teed it up to say, don't take it personal, because as adults, we need to respond correctly. So if we're taking it personal or we're getting upset, then we're not going to have the patience to reply with the comments that I provided. With saying that we don't have the patience to say, the choice you just made was incorrect. Remember, now you're holding accountable the consequence. Sometimes your initial knee-jerk reaction is you're in timeout, or go to your room, or right. Yell at them, or whatever your form of punishment is, correct? Right?
Yeah. And so that, great. So these are all triggering the next questions I get. Parent was basically telling me the other day, single mom, that if she doesn't yell at the kids, they don't take her seriously.
Well, again, this is where you want to, again, share the choices that they're doing incorrectly, and share the consequence for if they make that choice. So it does lead into the same thing. So if mom feels like she constantly needs to yell in order for them to listen, that means that they've already whatever they want until to yell. So she's already rewired their thinking process. So this is something that will take time, but it is a process that you can help rewire the children's brains by deploying that patience and saying, your choice to not listen to me right now means that you're disrespecting me. And every time you choose to act this way, this is the consequence that's going to happen. And then hold them accountable for it. And on this, Denny, because if they're all leading into the same thing, then we can kill a lot of birds in one stone. All of this, what you can make this even easier if you have a list of consequences in your arsenal in the back of your head. Yep. Right? So if you say, listen, if they backtalk me, they lose their iPad for a day. If they are a consistent hitter and they hit other people, or they hit their siblings, or they hit you, mom or dad, then obviously that's going to be a more serious offense, right? Maybe they lose their iPad for 3 days. So have all the different consequences that you want to hold them accountable for, and have the different levels so that you can reply patiently and calmly with, you chose to do this, you knew it was the wrong choice, so here's the consequence, without having to really think too much about it or get flustered.
Awesome. So shameless plug, because somebody, me, happened to create a parenting discipline program that is just what you talked about. So list of consequences is huge. Awesome. That's one of the things we teach in all of our parent seminars. Cool. How about 3-year-olds? 3-year-olds have learned the word no.
So I think I need to be more. I need more specifics on that.
Basically, anything you ask them to do, the first thing they say is no. You know, hey, it's time to eat. Come sit down. No. It's time to get dressed. No.
Yep. It's the same thing with Van. So my son is the same way. So he likes to listen to his headphones. He likes to listen to his music. That's the thing that he's into. And it's not necessarily no, but it's 5 more minutes. Right. So I do that again. Going back to I do the Van. Your choice not to listen right now is the wrong choice. So I'm going to give you 3 seconds. I'm going to count to 3, and I'll give you 3 seconds to make the right choice. And if we don't make the right choice, then obviously you're going to lose your headphones, or I even put my son in a time in. I don't like to call it time out. I say time in, where he goes in his room and he has to think about what he did. Now, for 3-year-olds, to make it appropriate, if you're going to put him in time in, it's 60 seconds. Because he doesn't like to be alone. It scares him. He cries. So I say you got to go in time in for 60 seconds and think about your choice of saying no, because you have to follow the rules. Your choice to not follow the rules is incorrect. Now, to add on to that, because 3-year-olds, this is really where they start to understand feelings. And if you don't reconnect with your child after you hold them accountable, you may continually get that same pattern of behavior, because they get addicted to the cortisol and those feelings. So every time a child gets in trouble, their brain releases this neurotransmitter chemical called cortisol, just like when we're stressed out, right? And people get very addicted to cortisol. That's why when people watch the news, when there's a tragedy, they feel like they have to watch it all day on TV because they get addicted to that cortisol. It's actual chemical. So what I like to do with my son Van is after the 60 seconds of his time out, I make him give me a big hug and I hold him and I count to 10. And we count to 10 and it's our way of reconnecting. And then I tell him, I love you, Van. And he says, I love you, Mommy. And then we move on. And it develops a really good, loving relationship, and it develops a sense of trust. Because Van knows that when I count to 3, if I get to 3, he's going to be held accountable for it. And he's going to get a punishment, and it hurts his feelings. But he also knows after he's out of his punishment that we are going to reconnect. We are going to re-stimulate that oxytocin feel-good chemical so that his mood is elevated to a level that where he feels he trusts me and he loves me and he doesn't want to disappoint me.
Awesome. And it's almost like you're reading my sheet here. So, you and I are both very nerdy, as we've discussed, and love the science behind the child development. So can you address the endorphins and explain to the parents how each one works and why it's important as opposed to punishment?
Okay, so your negative chemical is your cortisol, which the average American today is highly addicted to. It's because of media, it's because of just the stressful pressures that we have in society. So when you think about good chemicals, think about the word dose, D-O-S-E, like a dose of medicine. So those doses you have your dopamine, and dopamine is your reward chemical. So anytime you win a contest, anytime a student earns their next belt stripe, earns their new belt, that their brain is releasing that dopamine chemical, that sense of reward. For moms, it's when Johnny goes to bed at night and you sit down and you drink that glass of wine for a day well spent, right? You pat yourself on the back if you drink wine, right? Okay.
Right.
Next one is oxytocin. This is the most important chemical that I focus on for my son, for my partner, for my friends, for my family, for my students. Oxytocin is considered the snuggle chemical. It's the chemical that's released in the brain when you feel a connection, when you feel a positive or loving connection with somebody else. We don't hug enough today. We definitely don't hug enough today. We don't make enough eye contact today. We're so used to doing this. We don't do enough high fives and fist bumps, enough with our students and with our friends. All those things trigger oxytocin. And the more times that you can do that, the more happiness that you're going to develop around your life. Smiling is part of oxytocin. When I go out all the time, I'm constantly reminding myself to just smile at as many people as I possibly can. It triggers that oxytocin. But going back to, as a parent, since this is the parenting interview, hugging. Give your children lots and lots of hugs. I am a big, big hugger with my son. It triggers really happy chemicals. And people are always saying, your son's just naturally happy. Why is that? I can tell you, if somebody said, what is the secret to having Van happy all the time, since teachers are saying he's always happy, I hug him a lot.
Right.
Really what it is. Okay, so D-O, the oxytocin. S is your serotonin. Serotonin is really released in your gut. And that's why we have an obesity problem, right? Because a lot of people are addicted to serotonin, but it's because it's the desire chemical, right? It's the one where you desire to eat. That's another sense of satisfaction that you have. So serotonin also is stimulated by the sun, which is interesting. So the faster you can get out in the sun, or the more you can be out in the sun, it's releasing all those serotonins. And then endorphins, which is the final chemical, and you get that with an elevated heart rate. So you get it with exercise, brisk walking, even tickling your kid, any kind of heavy stimulation. That's where endorphins come from. So you're constantly wanting to stimulate those. Think about endorphins if you're a runner, because I'm about to get back into running now that it's better weather. The runner's high that you get. Or if you take a kickboxing class, that feeling you get the minute you get in your car and you start to drive away, how you feel after that really good workout. Those are the types of chemicals that you want to focus on every single day. So, for example, if my son comes home and he's listening to me talk about politics, and I'm saying it in a negative manner, I have cortisol in the air, and he's going to feed off of that. So I catch myself, and I do not put the news or media on when he's around because I don't want him to be in that environment. I want my son to be surrounded by dopamine, oxytocin, serotonin, and endorphins constantly, nonstop. That's how you raise happy, healthy children, or one of the ways that you raise happy, healthy children.
Absolutely. I think that's huge as you talk about just the number of parents that I hear regularly complaining about their job and complaining about their day, and the kids, like you said, they're going to pick all of that up. One of the strongest things all my parents will talk about is the hug time. I introduced hug time about 3 years ago. So every single class, we take 30 seconds to go hug mom or dad. And so now suddenly my sitting area is packed with parents because nobody wants to miss that.
I love that. That's great. Yeah. Again, just going back, people complain about their jobs, and people complain about other people, or complain about things on the media because they're addicted to that cortisol. So you have to consciously, it takes consciousness to catch yourself when you're doing that, and to remove it from your daily habits. And once you figure it out, and once you start, it's not an immediate process. You're not going to turn around and be positive tomorrow. But if you catch yourself, you know what? I'm talking negatively. I'm complaining about my job. I'm complaining about the president, all the things that people complain about. Catch myself, and let's move on to some happy things.
Right. All right. Next nerdy question for you. The point of pre-framing and reframing behavior.
Okay. Point of pre-framing and reframing behavior. Can you be more specific so that I can
why is it important for a parent to pre-frame the situation to help reduce the arguments and the fights before they happen? So again, let's say a 6 or 7 year old, and they have an activity or something that they know that they're going to have to do, but they don't necessarily want to do it. Why should you pre-frame it, and how would you pre-frame it?
Well, I mean, I can get really nerdy here, and then of course you can embellish on it if you want to take it into another nerdy direction. But I really like to explain the actual physical things that are happening in your brain when you're pre-framing and you're reframing. It's just like what we do, and I'm going to use this analogy, when we do the match hats for Skillz. So we sit the kid down and we say, today we're working on focus. And focus helps you become smarter. And focus means this. So we're pre-framing the students for what we're going to do. So what's happening in the brain is, you have all these neurons that are firing in your brain. So the neurons start to say, okay, today we are working on focus. So it establishes what's called activate learning. So it activates their neurons to start to wire through the brain and start to focus on the task at hand. So pre-framing, today we're working on focus, gets the neurons to start to fire and thinking about the word focus. Then when we go into the actual skill building drills, which would be the task at hand, they're establishing what's called working memory. So during the skill building drills, when they're doing these game-based learning activities, now these neurons start to create these little proteins at the end, and they start to connect to other neurons. And that's how the highway of learning actually is established. Right? Then when we go into the curriculum part, that's where we're building fluid intelligence. That's where they're starting to learn the information long-term so that they can retain it faster. And they're building dendrites in their brains now because they're actually now working on their actual curriculum. So pre-framing and reframing is kind of the same situation. Pre-framing gets those neurons to activate. Then they actually go through the process, which is the working memory. And then when you reframe, you're fostering that fluid intelligence so that they can recollect it, because you set up to mold those new dendrites, mold those new proteins, and mold those new neural connectors.
Yes, that's
my nerdy.
Absolutely. and all absorbing in. That's exactly what I love and work on with the parents and families as well. How about addressing, and this is going to be more internal on the parent side, you hear parents say, well, my kid doesn't want to come to class, or my child doesn't want to do whatever the activity is. I'm not going to make my child do something they don't want to do. What's going on inside the parent brain, and how can we fix that?
Well, usually when a child doesn't want to go to class, it's because they're doing something really fun that they don't want to stop.
Yes.
Okay. There was a case study, and it's not coming to me right now, but it was a case study done by Daniel Siegel, who's my favorite author, and I know, Denny, you've read him as well. He wrote the book Whole Brain Child, and he also wrote No Drama Discipline. And in the case study says that children's brains have the capability of learning and doing great, wondrous things, but the child's brain is naturally lazy. And yes, kids are lazy, but it's not their fault. Their children just want to do the least amount of effort because their focus is just on whatever the task at hand is. So if they're playing video games before class, or they're playing on their iPad, or they're playing with a friend, and then you want them to stop doing that, then they're not going to want to go to martial arts class. So that could be one case. So in that particular scenario where you're trying to get them to stop something fun to go into martial arts, expect them not to want to go to martial arts. So what you want to do is you want to have a routine that's 10 minutes, 15 minutes before it's time to go to class, where they got to clean their room, or they got to do a chore, or they got to do something that's not as exciting as when you go, okay, now I get to go to martial arts class, right? So that's one example. If a child does not want to do martial arts anymore, and it's, you know, if you're having a conversation on the way home and he doesn't want to do martial arts, think about what you're saying to that child before he says he doesn't want to do it. Were you criticizing his behavior during class? Were you giving him too many corrections without enough praise? Because if you as a parent are saying, you know what, I saw you not listening, I saw you not paying attention, I saw you goofing off with your friends, well, then he's going to be like, well, I'm disappointing you, so you know what, I don't want to go to martial arts class anymore. Where it wasn't necessarily the martial arts program that he didn't like, but he didn't like your response to his behavior in class. So instead, you want to try to say things like, these are the things that I really liked that you did in class today, and you know what else I would like for you to do? I'd like for you to try not to talk too much with Johnny in class, because when you do that, you're missing out on so many other great things that you can learn during class. Those types of dialogue, if you can have more positive dialogue, that definitely will shift their motivation as well.
So it almost sounds like we should reframe it.
Yeah.
Yes. Like that tie-in. Good. All right. We got one more. I think this is going to be a deeper psychological question. With society today, we have two scenarios, so I guess you can tackle them separately or if they're the same. Different parenting styles. So a lot of divorce situations, and mom is always coming in saying, whenever he's with dad, when I get him back, it takes days to get him back under control. Or potentially in a worse situation, you have a nuclear family, but say dad is undermining mom's authority whenever she's trying to discipline, or vice versa.
Well, this one's a very tough one.
Yes.
And my partner is a very strict mother on van, and if he just threw a fit in Target the other day because he wanted some Pringles that he saw, and she said, no, you can't have them. And she just told him that he couldn't have them because she didn't want him to have control over her. And he screamed and threw a fit, and then she left Target. Me, I would have handled it very differently, and I would have went into choices and went into a little bit different of a parenting style. So yes, we definitely do clash, and but because we're in a working relationship together, we had a conversation about how we can both complement our parenting styles so that it's cohesive with our ultimate goal for raising our child. So if you're able to have that conversation with your significant other for the betterment of the child, obviously that's ideal. But I don't think that people would be asking this if they were in that position, right? Because they probably are already on it and working on it. Right. So those particular situations where you do not have a good relationship with your significant other, you see versions one way, they see versions the other way. The best advice that I can give you is for you to focus on being the parent that your child needs you to be when you have them. And unfortunately, having those different parent styles does negatively affect the overall growth and development of the child. But if you try to go against the other parent, you try to talk negatively about the other parent, you're not doing the child any better. You may make yourself feel better by saying, oh, your father doesn't know how to parent really well, that's why he undermined me, and he's not a good parent, but when you're at my house, you need to listen to me. That's not the right way that you should handle it. So if Johnny comes home and says, well, dad lets me do it, and say, I understand, but that's how dad handles his parenting with you. But my goal is this: I would like to help you become a better version of yourself. So these are the things that I do as a parent to help you in that way. So in other words, you're telling them what your goal and objective is. You're not insulting your ex-husband or your ex-spouse so that you're really confusing your child. And then you're just focusing on being the parent that your child needs you to be. It's really that black and white. And I know that it doesn't give this magical solution, but in those particular situations, there is no magical solution unless you're able to engage in a cohesive conversation or you go into therapy where you can work together.
Absolutely. And I think you just nailed it on the head that, if you can, great. If you can't, do the best that you be the role model you need to be. And you have to ignore the rest of it as much as you can.
Yeah.
So we definitely appreciate it. We're at about 40 minutes, and I know you've got some other stuff to do. So I guess wrapping up would be, as you've seen in my parent group, the parents are absolutely loving the Parent Skillz program.
Right.
What do you see as the next couple of months or the future, or what can parents be doing to get the most out of that program?
Well, so the Parent Skillz is my pet project. And to let the parents know, this was a passion project that I decided to add into my workload that is a free extra product that I give to Skillz members. And I wanted to do it side by side with you parents because I am a new parent. My son's 3 years old. I've been working with children for over 20 years, so I feel like I had a grasp on it. And then I got the child that I always used to be like, man, that person's a handful, and that is my son. So I said, you know what? I really want to be able to work with my son and deploy parenting skills that help work with his core nature, which is very hyper, very defiant, very ornery. It's like, don't pour that chocolate milk on the floor, and he does that.
As he's staring at you.
Yeah, and I wanted to do it in a very proactive, positive way where I can nurture his core nature and still be a great parent. So I created these parent skills, but I do the next month, the month prior. So all the lessons that I'm giving you are things that I just did the month before, and then I collect all the data and I provide that content for you guys. So I'm not going to give away what the parent skill is for next month because, Denny, I know that you run these contests,
right.
But the next one's really good. And the next one's really going to help you as a parent, and you're going to have a lot of aha moments. And maybe you've heard this parenting skill before, or you've done it before. But I'm going to put it together in a cohesive package where it's going to be in the forefront of your thinking for the entire month, and it's going to be really exciting. So, how do you utilize the Parent Skillz program? Is to take it one skill at a time. Just like we say, when you're struggling, you take it one day at a time. The same thing with the parent skills. So really, if you focus on one parent skill at a time every single month, then that's how you become a better version of yourself as a parent. Instead of trying to think of all the different strategies and techniques, you can overload yourself. But if you can focus on one skill at a time, that's really how you get good results. I strategically laid out, there's 8 parent skills total, the order in which they should be done. So this is cohesively in an order. And then what's going to happen is after we reach all 8, then we're going to go back and we're going to redo them. But we're going to redo them at a higher level, which is very, very cool. It's a process, right? Parenting, you just don't wake up being a good parent, and you don't just read a book and become a great parent. We need motivation, we need roadmaps, we need guidance, and that's what Parent Skillz is all about, is to help us parents just clearly focus on one thing at a time and become better at that skill, and then work on another skill. And it's interesting because I'm sure if you're following the Parent Skillz to the T, which sidebar, I have to say, we have over 300 Skillz schools. And I'm part of many of the Skillz schools parent groups. Denny has the best group, and I'm not just saying that because I'm on here, Denny. You've seen me post it in my other groups that you have the best engagement with your parents. So you are very fortunate, a wonderful community that you have fostered. You guys are doing a great job, but you've probably noticed that even though you're focusing on this month's skill, you've already implemented the habits that you developed from last month because you focused on them for a whole month. So you don't really need to focus on them as much anymore because they become a habit. That's why I say for 1 month, focus on one skill, because you can build that as a habit. It becomes a natural part of who you are as a parent.
Absolutely. And then for my part of it, taking your great ideas and running with them every couple of months, I'm actually doing a parent seminar where we'll go over the last 2 months of those skills. So that it's not just a Facebook thing. It's let's sit down, round table this, and see what we can do to help.
And I don't know many schools that do that. So it's a very rare find to have a school owner who does this in addition to everything else that you're doing for your students and your community. You guys are very, very fortunate, and it's motivating for me. So when if and when I get back into owning a martial arts school, this is something the model that you're using right now is having these parent seminars is something that I definitely want to follow with as well.
Well, fantastic. Well, as always, 45 minutes of your time is absolutely awesome, and appreciate it. I absolutely treasure our friendship and have enjoyed everything that I have learned from you over the years, and look to many, many more years of being great friends, and seeing you soon at our next Discovery group.
Yes, at the beach.
Yes.
All right. Have a great one. Thank you very much, everybody.
All right, take care.
Take care.